Guitarists, we've got a problem. Most of us are completely clueless as to how to make the blues sound more interesting. And this applies to genres even outside of the blues, but today we're going to focus specifically on the blues. This is a really basic technique that I'm going to show you today that has helped me spice up my playing, right? And by the end of the video, I'm going to show you a technique that's going to advance your playing without having to learn any new shapes. So what I'm teaching you is a new approach. No new shapes that we have to learn. So it should be quite easy for you. This is who I used to sound like as an intermediate guitarist as well. And I wasn't very proud of my playing at all. I didn't know this technique that I'm going to show you today. And you can hear it made me suffer at the cost of not knowing, right? I wasn't very good at the guitar, I wasn't proud of it. But with enough time and dedication and practice, I managed to advance my playing and get to the point where I could comfortably play through chord changes. I was proud of my playing. I knew how to improvise and play with other bands and musicians and create my own cool and interesting songs that, again, I feel I'm quite proud of. So again, I've been in your shoes before. I know how to get out of them. Don't worry, we can improve. This is how I got good at guitar. My name is Fabian Dolan. I've had 10 years of experience on the instrument, over 10,000 hours played, and many students taught. Hopefully one more today. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to join a community of like-minded guitarists, and again, tune in for some free live lessons that I occasionally do over on Discord, check out the link in the description. I think you're really going to enjoy that community. Again, it's growing quite fast, so get in while it's still small. We also have an Instagram if you want to ask me any question. So, intermediates, we assume that once we have a chord progression, there's not really much more that we can add to make it sound interesting. We kind of just stay at the same level. We don't know what we're supposed to be doing to improve and spice our playing up a bit. It turns out there are actually so many tiny little details that we can add to level up our playing. And again, the problems of the intermediates is just they're not aware of what these details are. They're actually like very simple to add in. It's just it takes a bit of creativity and thinking outside of the box to be able to discover them, right? So what I'm going to show you today is how to use this technique in a basic 1-4-5 blues progression in the key of G. Now, if I asked an intermediate to play this for me, it would sound something like this. I'm going to switch the camera over to the fretboard so you can see what I'm doing here. So here I am in the key of G, this on the 3rd fret, playing this G chord here. So if I asked most intermediates to play a 1-4-5 in G, it would sound something like this. And then back round again. And well, so if I asked an intermediate player to play this 1-4-5 in G, again I'm around the 3rd fret on the fretboard here playing this G bar chord. If I asked them to play the blues progression for me, it would sound something like this. While there isn't really anything wrong with that, that is technically correct, right? You didn't do anything wrong, but it's very basic. It's quite boring. There is a way that we can make the sound more interesting and we can spice up our playing. And again, we don't really have to learn any new chord shapes. We already technically know everything we need. It's just what we're going to change is how we approach these chords. So, how can we improve this? Grab your guitar for me. We're going to follow along with my fretboard today, alright? Make sure you have your guitar in your hand. We've got something to learn today. So what we're going to do is we're going to move into every chord from either a half step above or below. So for example, if the G major chord is on this 3rd fret, we can either go to it from a half step above or a half step below. So if I'm playing the 1 chord in the progression, we have you see, I just moved to the next chord there, right? I went from a half step below into it like that. So if I just play the bass notes, you'll be able to hear what I'm doing. Right, you get the idea. So we want to be able to spice up our playing a bit by going into it from a half step below or above. And again, this can get even more complex when we start adding in like these more advanced, like jazzy kind of sounding shapes, like again, but that's like a lesson for another day, right? It means we're gonna have to learn some new shapes, and I promised you that we wouldn't have to learn any new shapes in this video, but again, we can expand upon this and make it sound even more interesting and get these kind of complex kind of sounds going on. But yeah, it's mainly what we need to improve is our approach, is how we target these notes, is how we go into them. So it's basically being able to go from a fret above or below into each chord. And again, this works in other genres as well. It doesn't have to be in a blues progression, but it's most obviously heard in blues. I'm sure you've heard a similar sound before. I know, for example, from the top of my head, like the bands like the Allman Brothers use stuff like this a lot. So again, you've probably heard this kind of stuff before, but this is what they're doing. They're not really adding these chords. They don't write them down in the chord progression when they're writing the music, right? They just add them in to kind of spice things up. It's not like the chord progression is, oh, F sharp and then G major. No, it's just G major, C major, D major, G major. But they spice it up by going right? So it's not really technically written down, but it's just a nice little like technique that you can use to kind of flavor things a bit. And we can also go even further than this, right? Again, we're adding a bit of tension by doing this, by adding in these chords below and above. It creates a tiny bit more tension. But again, we can go even further than this and use it to influence our lead playing. So again, if we had a solo that was in the key of G, in a G blues, we have our triads that we can use. So we have G major. So I can just use a... So I was using that same approach there with my lead playing and triads, is that I have this G major triad I can use here. Instead of just starting on that, go a half step above or below and like slide into it or like bend. Or again, like just slide down from below. Like this is how you're going to get these more kind of complex and sophisticated sounds, and it's not really like there's no advanced kind of theory going on. It's just, oh, I have this shape here and I can kind of move into it from a fret above or below. Right? It's actually very simple to create these kind of sophisticated sounds. It's all about the approach. It's not necessarily learning a new thing, new shape on the guitar. It's learning how to know what we already know and use it in a new way. So yeah, when taking a solo approach, Just mess around with like targeting stuff from above and below. And again, this works for all your triads. And again, this is not just in the blues. You can use this in every single genre. We use this to make music, right? We don't want to be stuck in one thing. Again, this isn't really like complex theory. You'll hear jazz people doing this a lot, and you'll think, oh, I need to learn some complex theory to play like a jazz player. No, it's just you need to learn how people approach the instrument. And they're doing all these basic things. It's just they're being creative with it. They're doing very simple things, and they're adding a nice little twist on the top. So, to recap, improving at the guitar, it isn't always about learning something new. You don't have to learn a new scale. You don't have to learn a new technique on how to sweep pick or stuff like that. It's not always about learning something new. Most of the time, we already know how to play everything we need, in that like we already know what to do with our hands and where to put it on the instrument, right? It's about finding new ways to use what we already know. We want to get more efficiency, and we want to be able to capitalize more out of what we already know on the guitar, right? We don't want to just be aimlessly learning all this extra stuff that we don't really actually need or care about to try and improve. We kind of we have this idea that, oh, if I learn how to sweep pick, I'll become a better guitarist, when in reality, you'll still be stuck. You'll just know how to sweep pick now. It's not really going to change your playing that much. So yeah, what you need to focus on is finding new ways to use what you already know how to do on the instrument. So yeah, start approaching chords from a half step above or below the target, right? You can do this with your rhythm playing, and you can also do it with your lead playing. It's the approach that we're looking at here. And if you still suck after this lesson, don't struggle alone. Book a call with me. There is a link in the description, and I'm not going to stop teaching you until you become an advanced player. So yeah, check that out. Don't miss out on the opportunity. And again, respect for making it to the end. You're in the top 1% of guitarists if you made it this far. Click here for another video and subscribe for more high quality guides.